Hello there, it's Chris again. Today I'm talking to the OBE or outcomes-based folks. If you've made your choice and you've decided to go with outcomes-based education, this is for you. So you'll notice here there's at the top of the thing themes. Let's not worry about that too much because themes generally come out of your development of outcomes. It's something we do at the end. So let's just start down here. This is the basic outcomes guide template right here. And over on the right-hand side, you don't see it here, but that's the real world. Okay? Everything comes from the real world, both in CBE and in OBE, but particularly in OBE, because remember we talked about this in previous kitchen tables teachings. OBE is intended for learners who are just about ready to go out into the real world and oh, excuse me, I just get some emails there from other folks. Where was I? It's Sunday. I'm going to go slow today. Okay, so the real world over here, right? These learners in OBE, they're just about ready to go out into the real world. So we want to talk about what outcomes we want to develop in our course. In other words, what do the folks have to do in the course to prepare them for that real world that's out there, that integrated, synthesized, messy, diverse real world. So the first thing we do is we develop outcomes. And those are developed from performance statements, remember student performance statements, with active verbs. And we talk about various performances. We could call them competencies if you want to. But outcomes being bigger, as we've discovered already, hopefully, you want to combine several competencies together to get an outcome. The next thing we do is we're working backwards. Remember, this is the method for the OBE. We're working backwards to assessment tasks. And this is a crucial connection. What is an authentic task, assessment task, for this particular outcome? This is an important area here. You should spend a fair amount of time trying to figure this out. So if you want people to practice communication skills, how are you going to assess that? What's an authentic assessment that captures that will let you know, will enable you to predict how they're going to do out in the real world? Once you've done that, you start listing. This is kind of cool. It's just a column where you list all the different skills you can think of that you think these people need to have that you're going to teach and they're going to learn in the course. So too with concepts and issues. And lastly over here, prerequisites. We want to have a certain standard already before we come into this outcomes-based course. So this is an important thing to be able to figure out as well. So let's scroll down a bit. What do we mean by concepts and issues? So you can read that. Concept refers to areas of the cognitive domain that entail comprehension and application, and issues, evaluation and synthesis. So we're getting into the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy, and we're talking about, for example, theory. Theory would be an example of concept. An issue might be something that comes up in the real world where people have to solve certain issues. Or they could be dilemmas. They could be problem-based type things. The disorienting dilemmas, for example, ethical issues, to name a few. All right, assessment tasks. We've done that. So I'm going to scroll down here and just let me click the view here because this view is different. And we'll go down here to, this is the outcomes guide for 3210. So let's take a look at an outcome. Discern and articulate the needs driving the development or revision of a course, workshop, or learning event. So discern and articulate. So not only are we figuring out how to do a needs analysis, which we're talking about here, we can articulate the need in a needs proposal. So let's see if there's something here in the assessment that would cover that. Oh, here we are. Prepare a rationale for your curriculum content and delivery choices. Right? And it could be journal entries as well. Obviously, you're going to be putting the needs in your DACM or your outcomes guide. So those are assessment activities for that first outcome. Now let's take a look here. Let's just go down. Use professional and respectful communication skills. Well, that's a theme almost, isn't it? So let's see what it says in themes. Develop, prepare, reflect. And the reflect on experiences would entail that professional, respectful communication skill. So let's take another one. Develop or modify a course, workshop, or learning event. Okay, so what are we going to do here to assess that? Well, we're going to be looking at, again, outcomes guides and profiles. So you see how these two things are quite connected. The outcomes and the assessment tasks are very important to work out first. Now, what sorts of skills are you supposed to be learning in this class? Using curriculum terminology, differentiate what has to be learned, content, and how the course will be conducted. So that's the what and the how we've talked about. Select appropriate learning activities, align planning, align course goals, objectives, or outcomes assessment tasks with course delivery and course evaluation, develop technical writing skills, and so on. So those are the skills of the course. What about concepts and issues? Okay, so you have to know something about curriculum development, theories and approaches to curriculum development, purposes. This is the needs assessment stuff here, stakeholders, needs assessment, course outcomes, mapping models. Oh, let's see what else. Toolbox, training, academic models. So these are all the different things we've already talked about. You've already researched in the course. Blended mixed mode course, development models, planning for learning. We haven't done that yet. The different types of lesson plans, that's week 6. Alignment issues, that's week 7. And teaching points and learning tasks. Okay, so this is again some of the how stuff. So that's basically a outcomes guide. And then when coming to the themes here, you're going to be, after you've kind of looked at the outcomes, looked at the skills, concepts, then you start to think, okay, what are the general themes? What's going on in general in this course? And we've got develop curriculum documents, prepare a rationale, and reflect on experiences. So those are the themes that are the general kind of threads that we want to weave through all of your experiences in this course. So that is a course outcomes guide. And again, the big issue or the big challenge is developing these outcomes, making sure they're rich enough, they're diverse enough, they're not too narrow, and they're not too focused, they're not too discretely focused. And when you're satisfied with those, you post some of them and have your colleagues and your friends online there look at them and give you positive comments. Then you develop assessment activities and move towards the left. Let's take a look at an outcomes map. Okay, well, that's the template you can find in your manual. Where is the map? There it is. Okay, so this is again the 3210 course outcomes map. Now there's a few things that I would like to change on this. I would like to flip this. This thing here is the real world. I'd like to put the real world here in this box. And I'd like to take the intended learning outcomes and put them in this little box here because they're coming out of the course and leading towards the real world. So that's how I would like to customize that. Going over here, we see the prerequisites. And then all the stuff in the middle, this is where you can get imaginative. This is how a person navigates through this course. So here's some of the issues and concepts, right? And here are some of the things that people produce, right? CBE, this actually is a typo in the manual. Should be OBE because you could either produce CBE or OBE documents. So there's a typo. We have to fix that. On the outside ring, we have the other courses included in the PIDP. Now, that may or may not be something you want to do because it seems in some ways to confuse the issue. The idea here is this is a map or a visual of how you navigate through all of the concepts, all of the issues, all of the skills that you are going to be presenting in the course during your lessons in order to get to the outcomes. And the outcomes, I think, should be here, which then leads you to the real world expectations. Hopefully there's a congruency between a person who meets the outcomes in the course and a person who can go out into the real world and meet the desired outcomes of the employer. So those are the two documents you have to produce in 3210 outcomes-based education. Take a look at the manual, and if you have any questions, please send me an email. More later. Good luck with this assignment, and remember, I'm always here to talk to you. Bye for now.